The governor says yes to sewer funds and an informal review of plans to expand a harborfront hotel on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Friday, August 24th, 2012. I'm Sarah Colvin. Governor Deval Patrick approves legislation to establish a sewer construction fund for Barnstable. The act establishing a sewer construction fund was signed by the governor on Wednesday. The act allows Barnstable to use its local options rooms taxes to save for future sewer construction. The full text of the new law can be viewed online at mass.gov. The owners of the Hyannis Harbor Hotel would like to expand. They're hoping to construct a 4-story hotel adjacent to the current property at the harbor. Site plan review heard an informal discussion about the plan in its meeting Thursday morning. Most of the discussion involved parking. Attorney Jeff Ford said he met with hotel managers prior to Thursday's meeting.
Site, since they've owned it, trying to kind of determine what they use out there. They think that the conventional 158 spaces that they're going to have is going to be sufficient based on their past there. The valet protocol, which they're working on, and once they have a formal plan, they'd like to give that to you for comments as well. They feel would only be needed probably 10 times a summer, if that. It would be kind of in an extreme peak season type incident where they don't have that very often. They have talked to an abutter about off-site parking, depending on what happens with the regulatory process, and they do have some interest where they could obtain that if needed. Although they don't feel they do at this point, based on what they've seen out there and how they've parked in the past.
Do they give a park? Is there something put in the windshield of a car that they know those cars are at the hotel?
I am not sure on that. I can get back to you. I know one thing they are trying to do is be more vigilant out there about who gets into the parking lot. I think based on my discussions with them, they've often found that, there's people that are there that aren't guests, unbeknownst to them. And I think, they've admitted they need to be a little more vigilant about that, especially where parking is limited to begin with. They certainly want to make sure that it's only being used for their guests. So they're going to work on a program, perhaps something in the window or something beyond that would assist them in preventing that from happening in the future.
Building Commissioner Tom Perry suggested perhaps the lot be gated with access only allowed by guests holding hotel key cards. Ford responds to questions about use of the hotel lot and that possible valet parking.
On the prior parking at the site, they estimate currently they use about 0.68 for each room, and that's sort of their average. So when incorporating the valet into it, they think that they would be around 0.77 per room, which would still give them ample parking with that program in place. And that's kind of their plan and how they're coming up with that. And obviously, they'll get some more detail as they get the valet program finalized.
Consultant Matthew Eddy of Baxter & Nye further explains what he knows about the lot.
So even without the valet, based on what their current needs are, and based on their studies, if you will, of the 0.68 parking spaces per unit, with the proposal, 204 total rooms, 158 standard parking spaces, that yields our 0.77 parking spaces per unit. So it would exceed what they believe their demands are, and then as Jeff stated, a few times a summer during peak events is where they might have to use the valet aspect, which would then, yield beyond that. With the valet, it yields almost 1 parking space per unit.
And again, they thought 10 times per summer might be even high for that. And in the times when they don't have it, the standard days, it would just simply be a standard parking lot where you check in and park your own vehicle.
Right. Does that include the restaurant? Because the restaurant is open to the public. That acts like a separate business.
We'd have to check with them as far as their parking demand that they're identifying. It's 0.68 parking spaces. I know every time I've go to the Blue Water Grill, I like sitting outside there in the summertime. I park in the public parking areas.
Right. I'm not saying that's open, but.
But yeah, no, that's a good point.
We can ask if they factored that into that.
Just to kind of get back to that, I hear what you're saying, man. I did look at an aerial, and we should sit down and discuss, how many cars and where they come from, just to make sure we all have a good understanding. Because even if it has to go to valet, it's obviously going to be important that that valet be, staffed and have it work smoothly.
Right. Absolutely.
And I don't know if we Could you explain maybe at some point how the site operates with the cars when they come into the site, where they register and all that?
Sure.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we can touch on that now too. They actually have a drop-off at the existing hotel. In the plan, they have 5 drop-off spaces as you pull up that are currently there. Their plan is to use that as the drop-off for both buildings, so that'll be sort of the check-in registration for all guests, regardless of your building, at that main drop-off center. So they're not going to have a separate drop-off for the new one.
So they're going to maintain that curb cut?
Yep.
Okay. Which curb cut are they eliminating then?
Right here. This one right here.
Okay, all
That's
right.
that's where the building's going.
Okay, so there's 3 curb
So,
cuts on
actually,
Ocean
that-
Street
you're
then?
correct, right, I misspoke. I wasn't thinking about the lobby aspect that they have. They do
Okay.
have a curb cut there.
Okay,
And the drop-off, correct me if I'm wrong, but you pull in, and then you go back out onto Ocean and then go into the parking lot? Or is there a direct connect from that drop-off?
no, there is no dark.
I don't think there's a direct connect.
Yeah,
I think you could go out and turn
Yeah,
back in.
you
after
go out.
Oh,
and
you
come-
have to,
come
you
back in.
can't,
Yep.
no, you can't go from there into the parking lot. There's something there that prevents you from doing it. I'm not sure what it is, but,
While we're on the parking, there was one thing we talked about too. There was some concern with the 5 cars right by the new building that pull in when you come right off Ocean Street. That those vehicles, are then going to have to back out, right at the entranceway where people are coming and going. And with the building there, it's a little bit blind. So we were hoping that something could be done differently than that.
Finally, engineer Roger Parsons raised concerns about stormwater runoff and the environment.
On the stormwater, as we all know, we're at a pretty sensitive area here, and we respect what you're doing for the new facility. I would ask through the chair that you show growth management an option to look at the 10-year storm and see what that impact is on your site. We're not certainly making that a condition. But I'd also like to ask, on top of that some mitigation be given to the existing site. I don't know if you've considered, one way or the other, either through the new development or going back on the old, possible utilization of permeable paving, for example, as an option. Just simply something to mitigate the overall impact that might help you in looking at your conditions that you're creating. And I think just to recognize the sensitivity of the area of the harbor. So, thank you. We've done that down at the youth center, where the parking spots, some of the parking spots are constructed with the permeable paving. It's a little more expensive to build, but it also provides the less of a need for any subsurface situation. Seems to be working well down at the youth center. You're welcome to take a look at it. Obviously, you probably have already. The key to that is when you're doing the work, you don't want to get material infiltrating the paving. But other than that, and I think it's been a lot talked about maintenance, but in reality that the maintenance is really no less than normal paving, so in other words, sweeping and so forth. And if in a constrained area like this, you do need to go out and do a little vacuuming, you're talking about the situation where you can go out with a hand truck and do that. So I don't see that as being a restriction, but again, it's something to think about. And just have you look at that as something to mitigate, whether it be that or any other LID approaches, which I know you're familiar with, Matt. So it's just to get an overall improvement, more overall improvement to the harbor area, because we're going to have to do that when we do the Ocean Street project or any other projects for that matter in the forthcoming construction that we do down there.
This project is still in the planning phase. You can watch the entire site plan review meeting online at town.barnstable.ma.us. With Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Colvin.